Maybe in two. Here's over here, isn't it? No chairs left? Nope. There's one, but we'll see.
So why don't we go ahead and open the meeting? Hi, John. Hi, Judith. Hi, Jason.
Well, they're no voting, that's just questions. Yeah, but they're not voting.
Yeah,
So are we live?
we're alive.
Good news, everyone. We're alive. And live. My name's Scott Memhard. I'm the Ward 1 City Councilor and Chair of our Budget and Finance Committee. And with me is Councilor at Large Tony Gross.
Hello.
And we're expecting very shortly Councilor at Large Jeff Wardley. And this is the Budget and Finance Committee of the City of Gloucester City Council. And we are at the Gloucester Harbor Master's Office on Harbor Loop, and as well as being remote live via Zoom. And in addition to myself, we have our Assistant City Clerk, Grace Poirier. We have John Dunn and his able assistant. Is it Connor or Colin? I'm never going to remember it.
Connor.
Connor or Colin? Yeah. And we have a good representative. We've got the whole, practically the whole assessors board with us here lined up. Would you introduce yourselves for the committee as we go around?
Tim, good.
Tim?
Gary Johnstone.
Gary?
Nancy Pappas.
Nancy. And then we also have CPA co-chair Matt Lumberg, and as well as city councilors Tracy O'Neill and City Council Chair President Val Gilman, and I think Kenny Costa is our city auditor. Those are the folks I just need to introduce from the city side, and the rest of you will time in very shortly here. Sure. We've been asked, and online we have Councilor Grow. I see Judith Hoaglander, and Jill, are you with us as well? So Jill had asked me to take the items slightly out of order here. So we're going to continue as a Budget and Finance Committee for a moment, and then we're going to go into a committee of the whole for the CPA considerations. But project number 2 is the continued stabilization work. Oh, excuse me. That's diving in. So environmental engineer, item number 2, memorandum from the environmental engineer requesting acceptance of a 2024 lead service line inventory and replacement plan grant. And who's presenting on that behalf?
Hi, my name's Dana Martin. I'm
Hey.
the city engineer, and I'll be talking about that grant tonight.
Excellent, thank you. I can go right ahead.
Sure. So last year, EPA revised their lead and copper rule, requiring a more robust inventory of lead service lines for public water systems. Gloucester has pretty great data as far as water systems go, but this rule revision includes inventorying data about water services on the customer side. So the bulk of our data is up into a water customer's meter. So with the assistance of our consultant environmental partners, we applied for this grant through Mass DEP, and we were awarded the grant in full, which covers the full inventory project. There's no city match required for this. And the project bottom line is improves our inventory for our water service data, identifying any potential lead services in our system that we're not aware of.
Thank you very much, Dana. Councilor, questions?
Dana, you saying this is, so I'm assuming this is about our household water services?
Correct.
So are you going to be testing in the taps at inside the homes, asking people to test their water first thing in the morning and things like that?
That's not the best method. It's not the most efficient method identified. So first is going to be data review, so reviewing any service records. And then we're also outfitting DPW staff with these XRF analyzers, which are handheld analyzers you can hold up to a water service. So you could just go into a basement and point the device at your incoming water service, and it gives you the metal composition of the pipeline. So it can output like a percentage lead of that metal. So we already have meter techs working for DPW, so they'll be equipped with one of these for any service appointments they're already on. And then we will also systematically make appointments with customers throughout the city to collect that data.
So we're testing the water coming in, but not inside, not the plumbing inside the household?
Well, it's the plumbing inside the household, but right, I guess it's not beyond. Yeah, correct. It's right where it comes into the house, but that's, yeah, you may have lead solder, I guess, within the home, but this rule revision really only requires up until that meter. So
We're just checking the service line coming into the house.
correct.
And then Dana, what was the next step in terms of remediation steps that the city or the homeowner can take, and how they're advised with that, with this information?
So part of this lead grant includes a plan. So we'd be working with our consultant, our environmental partners, to identify a replacement plan. And that replacement plan needs to be in effect by, I believe, October 2024, but I'm not yet sure what that plan will be. I think it's dependent on the data we collect.
Yeah. If there are no other councillor questions, I'll go ahead and read the motion. And that would be the Budget and Finance Committee moves to recommend that the City Council accept under Mass General Law 4453A a 2024 lead service line inventory and replacement plan grant, a federal grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, passed through the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund lead service line inventory and replacement plan. And this is in the amount of $242,400 for the purpose that will consist of preliminary record screening, including review of record drawings and capital improvement master plans, coordination with the city's GIS provider and asset management provider will create a format a GIS map of service lines materials to be shared with on the city's website. Public outreach will include education materials for the entire city, as well as parties where service lines are identified. A technical memorandum of findings from the record screening and mapping will be prepared. And finally, the lead service line replacement contract documents will be prepared, including specifications, standard details, and construction cost estimates, and a plan for permitting. The grant period is through August 2nd, 2025. And as Dana indicated, there is no local match for this grant, and I so move.
Second, I have one more question.
Please.
So Dana, am I to assume or get out of this that we are not paying for the service line replacement if it's determined that there is lead in the service line?
That is not included in this grant.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Wishful thinking.
It's not to say that, sometimes grants such as this queue up to another round of grants that may be for that, but I can't say. Let's hope.
What happens if somebody gets found with a very high lead content? Do we deem the home non-habitable? That's not up to you, right?
That's a health department decision,
Yeah.
but certainly everyone will be notified.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 2 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you very much, Dana. Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now going to convene, with that item out of our way, in the City of Gloucester Budget and Finance Committee with the council as a whole, for the purpose of reviewing the first of 6 Community Preservation Act recommendations by our Community Preservation Committee. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jeff?
What?
No, thanks.
Grace?
So
No, thank you.
Val, do you want to convene the meeting of the whole?
Yes, hold on. Got it on my cell phone. I'd like to officially convene the committee of the whole for today's BNF meeting of November 9th. For the one item on the agenda of memorandum from Senior Project Manager CPC Administrator regarding recommendations for Community Preservation Committee Round 14 fiscal 20 for funds projects 1 through 4. And just announce that we have Tracy O'Neill here and Jason Bell. So there are 3 extra members of the committee that are here for this part of the meeting.
And Matt, are you going to taking this off, or is Zoe going to present stuff? Just in terms of getting the ball moving and getting a little overview?
In past years, I've done a quick preamble reviewing what we've done for the year, and then we introduce each project applicant to present and ask questions, answer questions from you.
It's worked before, it should work again. Please
Great.
introduce yourself and
Great.
set the stage.
Thanks. I'm Matt Lundberg. I'm the chair of the Gloucester Community Preservation Commission and have been for a couple of years now. I'll give you a brief overview of the CPC and what our job is in the city. The Community Preservation Act was passed in Massachusetts 23 years ago. And its purpose was to give municipalities a vehicle by which they could access funds from a state trust fund to augment funds that they raise themselves through a real estate tax surcharge locally. And those funds could only be used for projects for historic preservation, affordable housing, open space preservation, and outdoor recreation. The statute defines a number of different requirements on how to manage those funds and the recommendations from them. The core of that is the establishment of a CPA or a CPC, a Community Preservation Commission in our town. Gloucester first attempted to pass the CPA in Gloucester in 2001 with a recommended 3% tax surcharge. That failed at a ballot vote by about 2/3 to 1/3. It was re-proposed in 2007 at a 1% surcharge, and that failed by less than a percentage point. It was added to the ballot again in 2008 when it passed 58% to 42%. Immediately after, in compliance with the statute, the first Community Preservation Commission was established in Gloucester. It is comprised of 9 members. There are 4 at-large members and 1 member each from the Gloucester Housing Authority, the Planning Commission, the Historic Commission. I'm gonna forget because I'm going off the top of my head. So I'm gonna go to the website for that. But there are 5. Let's see.
Planning Board, Historic Commission, Conservation Commission.
There we go. You have open space and recreation, planning, historic, the housing authority, and the conservation commission. Thank you. Sorry about that. We each serve 3-year terms. We are term limited at a maximum of 2 terms. And so although a partial term is not considered in those, so if somebody's appointed to pick up an incompleted term, you can serve up to 7 or 8 years. Through last year, we've raised $7.7 million locally through the 1% tax surcharge in Gloucester since our inception in 2008. And that's been matched by $2.3 million from the state's CPA trust fund, about 30%. The amount of the match varies year to year. The trust fund is funded primarily from a fee that comes off of every transaction that goes through the registry of deeds. And that fee currently is $50. That build a trust fund, that fund is divided between all municipalities that have passed this CPA like Gloucester has. There are now just under 200 cities and towns that support it. And they've adopted it at anywhere from 1% tax surcharge to a 3% tax surcharge. In recent years, the percentage has been pretty high. The match from the state has been between 20% and 52% over the time we've been participating. The last few years have been high for a variety of reasons, one of which was because there was a lot of real estate transaction activity in the last couple of years until last year. This year, it's expected the state match will be much less because of the real estate market. Last year, we got, I think about $300,000 from the state. It'll be considerably less than that this year. The role of the CPC in town is several-fold, and this is all also outlined on our webpage on the city website. The first job is to establish a local community preservation plan, which was done initially, and we now review and update each year. That is an interpretation, or it's a laying out of what how the CPA works, but also where our priorities are in Gloucester, and lays out specifically what historic preservation means in Gloucester specifically, and what community housing means and so forth. We review that in a public hearing once a year with public input. We readjust the plan to reflect that. And then we go through an annual process. The annual process is we encourage applications from the community for CPA funds, and we try to educate them on what is eligible for CPA funds. It's a pretty substantial application, so we first ask people to submit a very simple, roughly one-page form. There's an eligibility form, so that will help you define whether your project is eligible before you go through all the work of actually applying for the funds. Those eligibility forms, applications are due in early March. We vote on those immediately after that. Then the full application is due in May. We, as a committee, assign liaisons to each project. We meet with them, do site visits, have each applicant make a presentation at one of our meetings, which I know that most of you, if not all of you, have seen the videos of. And then in September, actually I should say in August, after those presentations, we get a statement of account from our city auditor, Kenny Costa, to make sure we know how much money we do have in the fund. And then we meet and deliberate of the application, at the eligible projects that have applied, how much the committee will recommend to the city for funding. We try to make that recommendation to the city council each year in September, which we did this year, I think September 23rd. That then comes to the city council, and then before this group, the BNF committee, for their review of our recommendations and whether you want to approve and recommend this to the full city council. We repeat that each year.
It's a very helpful summary. Thank you, Matt.
This year, I think just Scott, you had mentioned 1 of 6. Tonight, we've got 6 of 12 projects on the agenda. We are recommending 12 projects this year, 9 historic preservation and 3 in housing. No projects this year in recreation and open space, which is a little unusual. But we are required by law to set aside at least 10% of our funds each year to each category: historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space / recreation. So although there's no recommendations for open space recreation projects this year, there is money that is allocated for future use for those projects.
Excellent.
Is your meeting?
This is a committee of the whole. Val, do you want to?
No, it's your meeting.
Okay.
We're just gonna
So
participate
we're gonna
when
work-
you're ready to ask us to.
I'd like to launch right into the recommendations for this year, unless there are any questions to Matt, just in general.
I just have one question.
Sure.
if I Could, on the overall piece, first, Matt, thank you for summary. I think it never gets old, because I think it's good to refresh everybody and people who are coming here for the first time to hear how this works. On the 10% requirement for each of the three categories. Obviously, then there's the other 70% that can be spent on any of those three, right? When you said this year, there's no recommendation, well, there's no applications, I'm sorry, for open space, and you're allocating 10%. How does that work in terms of, is it held in abeyance to be carried over for a future year, and from an accounting standpoint? How does that work?
Sure.
Please.
Kenny may correct me on this, but I'll give it my shot. The city maintains I think 4 accounts to manage CPA funds. One is a general fund, so that when we receive matches from the state, or when we collect the tax surcharge, that goes into that general fund. Each year, when we make our recommendations to you, and then if you approve them, those funds get moved into individual funds, accounts rather, that are set up for each project. There is a separate fund set up that is the Open Space Recreation General Reserve. And at some point in time, money or funds would be transferred out of the CPC General Fund and into the Open Space Recreation Fund. And if you look at page 2 in your packet, where the first page of our recommendations, you'll notice that the current balances and the balances after recommendations show those 3 separate reserve funds. And so that's where those funds will be lodged.
Thank you. I don't know if I asked my question perfectly well, sorry. I appreciate the counting of it, but regulatorily, in other words, statutorily, we have to hit these 3 categories with 10%. And if we put it into a fund, but not for a project, does that jeopardize any of the qualifications that we have to meet for the state match? In other words, if we don't meet the 10% this calendar year, does that have any impact on our ability to get the state money as well?
It does not. It does not. You just have to make sure that you reserve at least 10% each year for use in each category. But
So
you
we
can
could
put that
accumulate-
off until future years.
So we could accumulate a lot of money in a particular category and wait for the big project, whatever that might be, if there is one.
That's right.
Okay.
There's a lot of communities, particularly out west, who have, since they adopted the CPA, their driving purpose was open space preservation. And I know many, I lived in Acton and I was on the CPA there for a while. We would put a lot of money into open space each year with some targeted projects in mind that were going to be expensive.
Last question, sorry. Is there a way for us to get an accounting, just for information only, for the cumulative, 10% each of those 3, and then the remaining money goes into whatever, and you don't control what comes before you.
We already have it. It's right here.
That's the remaining balance, but do we have?
You have current balances.
No, I'm asking for projects that have been funded.
It's all on the state's website.
Specific projects.
No, let me rephrase this. Have we put 10% into open space and 10% into housing and 80% into historic preservation? Or is it 33, 33, 30? How would that play out?
You mean over the life of all of the projects that
Yeah,
we
I'd be
funded in
interested to see
Gloucester?
where the
Yeah, that
focus
data
is.
is there. I'd get it wrong if I tried to do this off the top of my head,
That
but
would make
I've looked those numbers up. The largest percentage in Gloucester is historic preservation. And as always has been.
Could you just comment briefly too on the City Hall restoration project and the debt service, just to put it in perspective?
Yes. The CPA also allows for bonding of projects. And Gloucester took advantage of that in one of our first years of using it to fund the City Hall restoration project. I'll probably get it wrong. I think that was a $2 million project, perhaps more. That a bond was issued for that started back in 2008, 2009. We paid that down about $200,000 a year, and that is due to be completely paid off, I believe, in March of 2025. Again, Kenny can confirm all that.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you. A question for
Yes.
Matt. First of all, thank you for the great work of the CPC. Appreciate it. So my question is, you had said that 200 of the municipalities, cities and towns in Massachusetts are involved with this.
Yes.
So that means 200 of 351 cities and towns. So if some of them stop participating, does that make the allocation higher for those that remain in the program?
Yes.
Okay.
We used to get a bigger allocation before Boston joined on board.
So they dilute it.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
And on into the projects. So the first one that we have before us is the project number 1, 14 Elm Street preservation in the amount of $75,000, and the applicant in this case is the Cape Ann Museum.
Yes, and Martha Oaks is here, I believe. Yeah.
Just to add to the historical perspective, the Cape Ann Museum has been very fortunate over the past 11 years to receive 7 grants from the CPC for historic preservation projects, including one which was perhaps the only collaboration you've done in connection with Rockport. So, and we're pleased that we've successfully completed all of those projects. We were able to match them dollar for dollar, in some cases more than 50% match. And so we're very thankful that the pool of money is there and that we're able to participate in it. And I do have 2 projects tonight, and the first one is 14 Elm Street, which is the back part of our Pleasant Street facility. I'm sure you're all familiar with the museum, and it's grown over the years. And in 1990, we acquired what I call the telephone building. It's the brick building on the corner of Federal Street and Elm Street. It was purpose-built in 1916 as the local headquarters for New England Telephone and Telegraph. So it had the switchboard inside of it, and it served that purpose until 1964, when the phone company outgrew the building, technology changed, and it was sold to the General Services Administration and was National Marine Fisheries offices and NOAA's offices until they went up to Rockford Industrial Park. So it's always been a busy commercial building, and as you know, it's right in the residential neighborhood there. One side has the Montaners parking lot on it, and then the rest of the neighborhood is all residential. And the museum acquired it in 1993, and when we joined it with the front part of the building, we essentially doubled the size of the museum. And for those of you who've been in the back part of the museum, the Elm Street building now includes things like Howard Blackburn's sloop, the Great Republic, the original statue of Our Lady of Good Voyage, the Fresnel lens from Thatcher Island. So there's some of those really big fisheries and maritime related objects. And it is now time to do work on the 1916 building. I think we've sort of been in denial that it's over 100 years old. And when the museum did purchase it in 1990, I think it was a big stretch for the museum. And so the minimal amount of work was done, and now it's time to turn our attention towards that building. So we are planning a major renovation. Again, it's from about halfway through the museum down the back towards Federal Street, towards Elm Street, excuse me. And our application before you tonight is for money to work on the exterior of the building. It is a brick building, which needs masonry repair. It needs repairs to the lintels. We're putting new windows in, and the windows will be back to the original size, which is taller than what the replacement windows are. And we've had a mason examine the building carefully. We're working with Windover on this project, and they've also sent folks out to look at it, and it does need masonry work. And then there's other renovations going on inside, upgrades to the systems in the building, security and HVAC and all that. Reclamation of an old staircase, which is 1916 beautiful marble staircase that's just been used as an emergency exit, and we're going to open it up to the public to sort of improve visitor access. But our application specifically is for the exterior of the building. And then since we submitted the application, we've been working diligently. and our architects. And seeing prices of everything go up and the wait time of everything go up, and so we're eager to move ahead, but it'll probably be a year from now before we are ready to, we will have to remove our collections from the building, move up to our other site at the Rotary and get started. So we're moving as quickly as we can. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Any from the Budget and Finance Committee or the committee at all?
Take them first.
So when you put stuff up over at Blackburn, is not Blackburn, Grand Circle.
Yeah.
Is, are they gonna be on, are you gonna have that open for displays or is it just gonna be storage?
We're gonna try, so we did a renovation in 2014 and we know how painful it is to close up shop and have no presence in the community. So we're going to try very hard. We're thinking about sending some of our collections on the road to another museum so that other people can enjoy them. But we'll make use of the space up there as much as we can. We have about 15 staff members that we'd like to retain, so they'll have to move also. We're assuming we will not be able to stay in Pleasant Street building during renovations. I've been through it once before and it's a little tricky, so but we'll have what we can.
Not the healthiest
Yeah.
staff. And just, this is off topic, but it just shows the importance of the museum to Gloucester. You, on the top of your head, can you say how many visitors came to the Hopper?
Oh my God,
That
I
many?
don't know, we went from about 600.
Oh my God, it's a good number.
650 people a day, we're down to 20 now, so it's very quiet. I don't know, there were like 30,000 people or something. So
Yeah, so
crazy.
it's
We
very,
spent money throughout town.
it's a very important piece of our.
Yeah. And we were very pleased to do it. We helped, kept our fingers crossed that all of our systems in the building would be all right, and it was fine, so.
That'll be nice to address the interior stuff too,
Yeah.
like, but you gotta take care of the exterior before you take care of the
Yeah.
interior.
And we, the building reminds me sort of the Sawyer Free Library that we have 1968 building, 1932 building, 1916 building, all added together with 5 different furnace systems and all this and that, and we do our best to keep everything top notch, but it seems like every 25 years, the security needs to be upgraded, the lighting needs to be upgraded, HVAC, so. we just keep
There's a
it-
lot of important stuff in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Martha. My question is always the consistent question I like to ask during the CPC review. Can you do a quick summary of all the events that are given for free for the city, for
Mhm.
residents, for taxpayers
Mhm.
that the KPM Museum has offered to us?
Yeah.
That would be
So
great.
of course, we charge admission. Like most museums, we have get-in free passes at all the regional libraries. We have a number of programs throughout the year that are free. They're sort of staggered for different age groups. Last Friday night, it was the beer tasting free for obviously the adults in the group. But there's at least one day a month where admission is waived. When there's exhibit openings, it's typically free to people. So there's lots of opportunities. And then, of course, at our second site at the Cape May Museum Green, that's open free all the time to everybody. So.
Great.
I don't think we've turned anybody away,
Thank you. I've seen the community enjoy all those things, so it's very appreciated. Thank you.
Good, Councilor Tracy.
Did you say you have the original statue of Our Lady?
Mhm.
And where is that?
It's in our Elm Street building.
No kidding. Wow.
It came to us in 1984. It was in bad condition and it was taken off and a fiberglass replica was made and put on the top of the church.
So what condition is that in?
It's not great. It's lost the waves that are on, you see on the fiberglass one now, but from the waves up, it's pretty good. She's made of wood.
And I watched the meeting and I thought you said you had 18 people working full-time
It varies up and
Okay.
down.
with the season, probably. Okay. Right. Thank you. Can I ask a question of Mr. Lumber?
Please.
Scott,
Yeah.
Mr. Black.
Oh,
Of course.
okay. So we have this, right? And I'm looking and we have, what did you even say? I went 9 items that are historic. But this says proposed funding for historic $0. So we have 9 items.
That means that the You're talking about that on that column that says proposed funding?
Yes, yeah,
What that means is that in order to fund the historic projects, money will be taken out of the general reserve. And
okay,
and that's what's gonna pay for those recommendations.
okay, you just haven't
Right.
tallied that and put it there?
As a general rule, and this is an accounting thing that Kenny can explain more better. We try to keep the balances low in each of the reserve funds unless we're required to save funds like we are for open space recreation this year. It just gives the city more flexibility on how to fund any recommendations that we make each year.
I find it interesting that we're spending, I added them up as 541,000 for the historic preservation and 350,000 for housing. So I just thought that was interesting that we're spending more on museums and whatnot as opposed to housing, where everyone is really hammering housing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention.
Yes, noted, and the CPC as a funding mechanism for affordable housing is an important one. But we can only respond to the applications that we get. And we just haven't gotten that many affordable housing applications.
Thank you.
Any other council questions? Council Grove?
Sorry, he's muted anyway.
I thought you would like the silence for a while.
I do have one other comment that I thought the council would appreciate, because the Cape Ann Museum projects are a good example of it. This project, the 14 Elm Street project, is a multi-million-dollar project overall. The CPA grant we've recommended is $75,000 project, $75,000, and that can only be used for specific tasks within their overall project that are for historic preservation. In a large project like this, there are many pieces that really aren't about historic preservation. So in each application that we get, and when the council recommends them, the grants department will write an agreement that says, these are the specific tasks that are approved for you to spend city money on, and they are all very specifically for historic preservation.
Can I ask a
Councilor.
question? So you said this 14 Elm Street is a multi-million-dollar project.
Mhm.
So this is one piece of it. So they could come back and say, here's a different piece and ask for more money.
If it was for historic preservation, yes.
Okay.
Any other councilor questions? Councilor O'Neill?
Do you have any aspirations of repairing that Our Lady statue or restoring it? I know it's not obviously in this, but as long as you're here, figured I should ask.
No, it's not in terrible condition because it's been inside now for 30 years.
Yeah,
So we don't have plans right now to do anything to it.
and with humidity and it changes in humidity that affects wood, right?
Yeah, and because of our HVAC systems, we keep the humidity of between 45 and 55% year round.
Even on Elm Street, even in that
It
building?
does have humidity control and
Wow.
temperature control in it. It's just, it periodically needs to be redone. So that we try and stick to that standard.
And what else have you been doing with that Elm Street property since, was it 2000 and,
1993.
okay, 93?
It houses our research library, which is open free of charge to the public all the time.
Okay.
That includes archival information, photographs, maps. Usually the time you have an application before we've seen the people doing research on sort of preservation. It has an education room, which is used frequently by the Gloucester school systems. It has our elevator in it. Until 1993, we were not handicap accessible. It has public bathrooms. And it has 2 large exhibits devoted to the fishing industry.
Public bathrooms,
I mean,
That's
the
interesting.
bathrooms, I don't mean public, I mean
Right, okay.
bathrooms,
yeah,
museum
because
bathrooms,
we don't have that really in the city.
so for our guests.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read the motion as it's before us. In full disclosure, what's the right chapter and verse? I'm related to Martha Oakes, but I don't have any personal financial benefit from the museum obtaining this CPA grant.
And neither does she.
How would you related?
I'll tell you later.
I'm just curious. I don't know. Okay.
Martha's my wife of 30 odd years.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay,
There you go, Tracy.
okay.
The committee recommendation, Budget and Finance moves to recommend that the city council appropriate up to $75,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Cape Ann Museum for the purpose of supporting the restoration and preservation of 14 Elm Street in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund, number 4760, and I so move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there further discussion or questions? All those in favor on the Budget and Finance Committee? Aye. Any opposed?
Would that be a meeting of the whole vote or just the budget?
No, just information only. And moving right along, the second question.
That's my question.
Yeah, the second project before us tonight is the continued stabilization work for the Babson Alling House. And the amount is $36,469, and the applicant, again, is the Cape Ann Museum. Matt or Martha?
Okay. The museum is fortunate to have a second site located just off of Grant Circle when you come into Gloucester. Includes the 1704 White Ellery House, which is the black house, what kids call it, and the yellow house next door, the Gamble Roof House, that's very prominent. A new collections building that includes an exhibit hall in the back, and then about 3 acres of open space in between. The museum's owned the property since 1947. They were just sitting on it. We acquired through gift the Babson Alling House in 2019. It had been in private ownership, and again, that's the yellow house. And we built the new collection center in the back in 2020. We store all of our collections up until now in our Pleasant Street facility. So we were absolutely chock-a-block full there. So we're now very lucky to have a collection storage area, collection work area in the new building. And the new building supports the old structures that are there. The Babson Alling House was built in 1704. It's not handicapped accessible except for the first floor. It doesn't have bathrooms that you probably want to use. So it relies on the new collection center, which is a state-of-the-art building just right next door. The whole site is called Cape Ann Museum Green. It's been open 2 years now, usually seasonally. It's open free to the public. There's indoor and outdoor programs. We do a lot of collaborating with people in town. We found during the tail end of COVID, it was a wonderful resource because everybody wanted to be outdoors. In 2021, we began stabilization work on the Babson Alling House. Again, it's the yellow house. And we had all sorts of delays and setbacks due to COVID, but we managed to complete 3 sides of stabilization work on the house, restored the central chimney, put a new roof on it, and then sort of ran out of funds. So we stopped and regrouped and looking forward to starting again. And we need to do the front facade of the house that faces towards the Rotary. There's unbelievably a freestanding privy, which probably dates to 1704 also right alongside. And we would like to restore that. And we'd also like to do some archaeological work around the privy, working with UMass Boston. And we like to move ahead and get this work done as soon as possible. We will rely on that house when we have renovations at our Pleasant Street property. It'll be used for office space at that point. It's a relatively modern house inside. There's lots of wonderful historic features, but it does have internet access and so forth and so on. So it'll be crucial so that we can keep going along. And then after renovations are done downtown and we move our offices out of the yellow house, it will become part of our stockpile of historic houses and historic resources that we use to explore various stories related to the history of Cape Ann. So the specific work we need to do includes clapboard and trim restoration on the exterior, mold and mildew removal, the privy needs new windows, actually a new door, and then the archaeological work is pretty straightforward.
Council questions?
The privy public.
The privy can be public.
Public is pretty.
Good. Councilors?
Good.
You might just comment about the workmen that you use for a lot of these projects like this. Being
Well, we've been
local.
fortunate to be able to use local people, which is, especially when it's an old building, there's always something that's a catastrophe at the last minute, and being able to call in somebody who can come. For the masonry work on the chimney of the Vast Nine House, we used a fellow from Maine, he was one of the best restoration masons in New England, so we went with him, but the rest of the contractors are all local people.
What exactly is a privy?
Outhouse.
Oh, okay, thank
And
you.
it's a three-holer.
No, it's just a two-hour. And it's, we think it is original. It has early plaster walls inside, which is pretty amazing. And it has like a vaulted roof that goes up like this.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures, but I didn't know.
Now you know.
No,
It's private.
I'm so glad I asked.
If there are no other council questions, I'll go ahead and read the motion. Budget and Finance would move to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $36,469 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the KPN Museum for the purpose of supporting the continued stabilization work for the Babson Alling House in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4761, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you. Next up, we have the Bayview Cemetery Restoration, project number 3, and this is a phase 2 project, and the amount is $40,000. The applicant is the City of Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee.
Yes, and representing the Cemetery Advisory Committee is the committee chair, Chris Maney, who I think is with us remotely.
I am. I'm here. Can you all hear me?
We sure
Can
can.
you all
Thank you
hear
very
me? Okay,
Yes.
great. I'm not too loud, right? Oh, great.
Perfect.
So good evening to you all. And as you know, I'm a member of the city-owned Cemetery Advisory Committee, which is under the jurisdiction of the Gloucester DPW. And I'm here, tonight to answer any of your budget or finance questions concerning this continued project of the restoration and preservation of, a threatened historical asset, city asset, which happens to be, Bayview Cemetery, which was established in 1728. Not only is it, an asset of the city, it's historical with respect to heritage and cultural, significance. It's also an open space, which is part of the Essex, coastal byway, which is part of the Essex National Heritage Area. So all that becomes quite significant in its restoration. The money that is being requested is $40,000, and that money would be used to pay the company, Gravesite Preservation, to restore and preserve approximately 140 to 150 known burial, grave stones, as well as excavate and reset that many or more granite fieldstone burial markers, which heavily populate Bayview Cemetery. With respect to the total project, I've estimated the total cost to be about $72,552. So this $40,000 that we are requesting for restoration and preservation of these historic stones and for the resetting of the unnamed but known burial granite fieldstones represents about 55% of the project. The first phase is underway and about 2/3 has been completed, and the last third of the project, that is for 2022, the CPA Restoration Phase 1, will be completed in the spring. which will leave us the time to move into, if you approve, this second phase of the restoration of Bayview. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. Councilor, questions? Tracy, Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you. You said the total cost of the project is how much?
$72,552.
72,000?
Mm-hmm.
50, and
Would
what's
you
the
like me
name?
to break it down?
No. What's the
I'm
name of the
sorry?
company doing the restoration?
Oh, sure. Gravesite Preservation of Winchester, Massachusetts.
And you said it was 2/3 completed, so is this the last of the restoration?
No, I'm sorry. What I was trying to convey was that right now we are working on phase 1, which is 1/3 of Bayview being restored and preserved. 2/3 of phase 1 has been completed, and what we're requesting this money for currently is for phase 2, which will target the second 1/3 of Bayview Cemetery. The Bayview Cemetery was divided into 3 sections, sections A, B, and C. We're working on section C right now and completing that come spring. And the monies that we are requesting from you all to approve is for section B, which is the second third, let's call it, of Bayview Cemetery. The cemetery has over about 350 known, grave stones that are engraved, and unknown amounts of field stones that have been used for burial markers throughout the cemetery.
So I just want to make sure I understand. Phase 1 is 2/3 complete, and that's
correct.
You're asking for money for phase 2.
Correct. This particular project is for phase 2 restoration of Bayview Cemetery, the second 1/3 of the total cemetery. The cemetery is about 2 acres. So if you divide 2 acres into a third, into 3/3, we're looking now to restore and preserve the middle third, which is section B of Bayview Cemetery.
Okay, so phase 1 is done, and that's
ongoing.
this is for phase 2, the second third.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Surely.
Chris, would you mind, Chris, if you just speak a little bit about your committee itself? And I believe there's a large amount of volunteer work that you go into supporting this effort.
So the City-Owned Cemetery Advisory Committee is a committee of 5, and some members of this committee, yes, also volunteer as cemetery volunteers. There is a group of wonderful people who volunteer to help care for the city cemeteries. With respect to landscape, with respect to resetting footstones, with respect to cleaning stones, with respect to educating people. And hopefully some of you even came to some of our tours for the city cemetery, tours that we had all throughout, this between June and October. So on this particular project, right now it's just myself and the restorer, because it's kind of this Bayview Cemetery happens to be a pet project of mine. So my husband has also been very helpful in helping to do some of the cutting of all the invasive vegetation. But yes, we do have a small but strong group of people who do help with city cemeteries. And you must understand that the city owns 14 cemeteries, and most of them are historic and most of them need tender care. And so our small group has to focus and give as much time as they can to each and every one of these cemeteries. Bayview is only one of them.
Thank you. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you. Is this the cemetery right after the Bayview Fire Station?
Yes, exactly. It's between South Kilby and Washington Street.
All right, thank you.
And if you all live in this area or you drive by, please don't hesitate to stop by, and you'll see an incredible amount of work that has been accomplished, in with respect to CPA Phase 1. And it's a marked difference. The neighbors throughout South Kilby have come and commented, and they've been thrilled the fact that, and some have even come to help with respect to the invasive vegetation removal.
I know from personal observation that it's under much better management and control recently than it was back 20, 30 years ago when it was totally grown over. So it's wonderful to see.
Yeah.
It's hard to miss it. No other councilor
That's
questions?
it. Thank you.
Councilor,
Let me just, actually, it was 50 years ago when Al Duca kind of adopted it.
Yep. Take your son.
Yep, and it was completely, you didn't even know there was a cemetery there. But thank you, and thank you for all the work you do at all the other cemeteries too.
Right, and it's actually with Al Duca. It's his mapping with respect to his Gloucester experiment, which was an incredible project that he, initiated with other people. And it's from that gives us our baseline to work from. And without that, it would even be much more difficult to help in the restoration of this particular cemetery.
Yep, he loved that place.
Worthing.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I have a question that's not specific to this application, but you mentioned, I think we're all very appreciative of how many people volunteer to help with all of our events, all of our activities in the city. What volunteer work needs to be done? And if someone wanted to volunteer, how would they do it?
A great question. So with respect to the work that needs to be done, I think many of the volunteers are eager to learn how to clean stones. The slate stones, the granite stones, the marble stones. And so that's probably, and what we're planning on doing, as you asked this question, is for the spring, we're planning on having a bunch of activities that will hopefully encourage people to come and volunteer. And the project will be, let's imagine that we go to Sumter Cemetery. And that cemetery it's a beautiful small cemetery, but every stone is covered in terrible, yellow lichen and obscures the entire, all the stones themselves pretty much. So we'll have an open house where we'll teach volunteers that come to how to clean stones, and we hope that they'll be so excited that they'll come and volunteer more regularly and help us all with respect to that particular project. Other not such exciting projects is, trying to get rid of Japanese knotwood, pulling weeds, filling in holes. But landscaping and maintenance is also part of the projects that we try to do and maintain with respect to the cemeteries. Another project, we could teach people how to set footstones, how to level them, how to make sure they're properly placed, and to lift them up and have them reset. So that would be another project we could teach them to do. So, landscaping, footstones, learning how to clean stones. And then there's also the project that wasn't very interesting. There's so many pieces, fragmented pieces. If you love to do puzzles, we'd put you into a section where you could just have a ball trying to see if you could put together all these fragmented pieces into forming, a particular stone, because, that takes time and ingenuity and creativity. You could also have a project of going about and trying to uncover buried stones and things of that nature. There's tons to do. I'm sorry, I was going on about that. But anyway, there's tons.
I think we need to have you at a full city council meeting.
Yeah, your enthusiasm is wonderful, and I appreciate Jeff asking this good question. We have lots that we can learn. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Jeff,
Thank
did
you.
you want to volunteer?
I would like to. Actually, that was inspiring.
And you can also do
I'll
gravestone.
put you on our mailing list, okay?
Thank you very much. We should all be on the mailing list. But thank you.
Yes, you should put all the city councilors on the list.
Just one other question, just a short answer, but does the Gloucester Department of Public Works support your volunteer efforts and coordinate with you?
Oh, they're incredible. I mean, it's without, for going back and looking at this particular project that's up for your review and your approval, the DPW is of that 72,000 that I quoted to you, the DPW is providing in-kind work about $18,000. That's with respect to the supplies they give us. That is, when I say us, I'm talking about the city-owned cemetery advisory committee, but they supply these projects of CPA, projects with respect to loam, with respect to gravel, with respect to sand. They do the landscaping, that is the mowing. And on this particular project was pretty exciting. I discovered that there are actually buried granite slabs, 3-foot slabs that run all the way from Washington Street to South Kilby, because this is a heavily sloped cemetery. So at one time, there were these stepped granite steps that led from Washington Street all the way to South Kilby. So DPW has agreed to excavate and reset those stones, so there'll be a walkway now that you can walk from Washington Street all the way up to South Kilby, along these granite steps.
Wonderful.
Are you excited about that?
We're seeing those.
So yes, we couldn't be, DPW is terribly supportive of us, and they've always been quite generous and always there for us at all times.
Great.
And when I say they, us, I'm talking about, the City Cemetery Advisory Committee.
I'm going to go ahead and move along and read the motion in support of this.
Okay.
And that is for Budget and Finance to recommend that the City Council approve up to $40,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the City of Gloucester Cemeteries Advisory Committee for the purpose of supporting the preservation and restoration of the Bayview Cemetery Restoration Phase 2 in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation would be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked by the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Capital Projects Fund, number 5812, and I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for everything.
I thank you all. Thank you for being so generous. Thank you. Bye.
Chris.
Grace, sorry, Grace, out of fairness to Judy, she probably doesn't know she's on the wall on the screen the whole time. Is there a way to make it so that the person speaking, it rotates to that person?
The next,
Thank you.
the next project before us tonight, number 4, is the Beauport Cemetery, excuse me, the Beauport Chimney Preservation. And the amount of the requested proposed grant is $20,000, and the applicant is Historic New England.
With us tonight, also by Zoom, are Christina Paquata and Catherine Pomplin. I'm not sure who's going to present, but it looks like we're here.
Hi there. Hi, Matt. Hello to the committee. I'm Katie Pomploon. Christina is actually in the room with you, so she can say hello and introduce herself, and we'll describe the project.
Now we know who you are.
Hi, I'm Christina Paquata. I'm the North Shore Preservation Manager for Historic New England. So Beauport is one of the sites that I maintain and preserve. So Beauport, it's over on Eastern Point. It has 6 chimneys. They're all made of brick. They're all different from the last. They're highly decorative, super high style. Throughout the years, we've noticed that no matter what we do, we get water infiltration. We repoint, we do flashing, we add crickets, no matter what, we always get water infiltration. We're to the point where we really kind of want to really take a firm stand to it and really address the issues. So what we're going to do is what we are doing or about to do is we're going to bring in a consultant that we've worked with in the past, and they're going to set up a monitoring campaign for all 6 chimneys. We're going to monitor them for 1 full calendar year. They're going to take the data, they're going to analyze it, and then from that, they're going to come up with some design recommendations about how we can hopefully eliminate the water infiltration. So of the 6 chimneys, 4 have active water infiltration that we see pretty much every time it rains. So with what we're asking for at CPC is $20,000. Overall, we think it's going to be $68,000. That's kind of the large scale project. So that includes what we're going to be doing this year, Plus, that's gonna include what we're gonna do out of our own pocket once we conclude our project with CPC.
Thank you. Those are questions.
I have a question for Matt, about your application. I think I remember there was a part in your application where you want the party who's asking for funds to also have some skin in the game in terms of their contribution to these projects. So you mentioned 68,000, but that's money coming out of your pocket or the nonprofit organization, the museum, not coming from taxpayers. Just wanted to make sure that's correct.
Well, it's not a requirement, but it's notable. You know, I think that when organizations contribute to the funding of a project, it's a reflection of the level of support from the community that they have, and that's really important to us in the CPC. Now, that's not universal. For example, we've got another application in front of us coming up from the Committee for the Arts, which is an unfunded city commission, but they have work to do that requires funds, and CPC is a good source of those funds. So not required, but always appreciated.
Yeah, it gives greater leverage, I think, too. Right. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please, Councilor Gross.
Not necessarily about the grant.
Please.
Do you still have a caretaker that's there or?
We do, yep. Right now it's the Craig family. We've been there about a decade now, maybe 7 years-ish, before my time, and I'm going on 5 years. So.
Yeah, my mother was a guide there in the 60s, and in the springtime, I'd also be hired to come in and dust. So it's quite an experience to have the museum to yourself and be able to actually touch everything.
Yeah.
Such a rebel.
Well, they paid me.
Councilor Gilman, do
Thank
you have a
for
question about
seeing it.
dusting?
I do. No, not dusting, no. I was thinking that Tony might be fishing off that section of the beautiful waterfront as well.
Well, no, that was in the 70s.
Okay.
Not the 60s.
Thank you both. My question is just my consistent question, and that is, do you ever offer free events for taxpayers of Gloucester? And if you don't, would you consider at some point starting to phase that in just a little bit, whether it be to seniors or veterans or some way to just share with people that might normally not be able to pay for the admission, but have the benefit of seeing something valuable to them as a taxpayer?
So we don't offer free programs, but we do offer free admission. So Gloucester residents can get in anytime we're open, so mid-May to mid-October.
Okay.
And that's actually true for any of our sites. So if you live in Essex, you get into Cogswell's Grant for free. So anywhere we have a site, any town or city, if you're a resident of that town or city, you get into that site for free. So all year round you get in. And I think we raised the prices recently, so the tickets are either $20 or $25 for like a regular adult. So yes, you would get into the free.
Good question.
Great,
Just you,
thank you.
You said all Gloucester residents.
Yep.
Yep.
All the time you're open.
All the time, you can come every day if you want to.
Get over there.
Yeah.
Watch out for the ghosts.
We do recommend advance tickets though, so keep that in mind, please.
That's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Question.
And that's the Sleeper McCann House.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful resource in the community. Thank you for helping take care of it.
The Indian was always a landmark.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, outside.
Or Native American.
Any other councilor questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and read the motion for tonight, which would be for Budget and Finance to move to recommend that the city council appropriate up to $20,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funds to Historic New England for the purpose of supporting the Beauport Chimney Preservation Project in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4762, and I so move.
Second.
Motion made, second. Is there any further discussion or question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck with the
Yeah, good luck.
water remediation and the nightmare of your roofs and chimneys.
You should ask how many people know what a cricket is.
It's nice to hear about a cricket, a good copper cricket.
Yeah, big copper cricket.
The next project before us is project number 5, the city-owned artworks preservation in the amount of $125,000, and the applicant is the City of Gloucester Committee for the Arts. And Judith, I see you there. I imagine that's your hat that you're wearing tonight.
Karen.
I'm the, yes, Judith and I are here. This is Karen Ristabin. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you. We can see Judith.
Yeah, I'm on vacation and my internet is outside and it's dark. So I can't be seen.
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. All right. So I won't go on video. Apologies for that. Yes, this is, so I'm chairing the Committee for the Arts. Judith is one of our members. Rebecca Reynolds is another member. We have a reconstituted committee over the last couple of years. And the city for many, many years has acquired artworks, from the murals to statues to the bronzes and plaques. And there has not up until now been a specific process by which the city-owned artworks were either acquired or stewarded or maintained. So the committee is in the works, in the process of developing a series of policies and procedures to oversee that work. And it's also investing in an inventory of all city-owned artworks in all categories. That is something that's a project that we're undertaking this year and into next year. So that's just to lay the groundwork for this CPA proposal that's in front of you. The CPA funds, what that would do, that $125,000 would do two things. It would provide a professional assessment of work needed for maintaining and the upkeep and restoration and conservation of the historic bronzes and plaques. There were several dozen of those. And with the city-owned sculptures, including the Man at the Wheel and other notable sculptures that need to be preserved, restored, and conserved in order so that we can have them forever as incredibly important community assets. There was in 2018 a professional assessment done of the city-owned murals by the Williamstown Art Conservation Group, and that assessment would be updated with this fund as well. So that's the professional assessment is one of the projects that would be undertaken with this. Then we would see what is prioritized by those assessments and undertake to start some of the restoration work of the plaques, of the statues and sculptures, and other city-owned artworks as necessary, as is flagged by the assessments that are done. There are very few organizations or businesses that do this kind of artwork assessment, conservation assessment. We've cited two of them in the proposal, Daedalus and Skylight, both of which have provided services to the city in the past. So those would probably be the number, 1 and 2 choices that we would put a request out to. So the timeline is there. This work would start next year. It would go over a 2-year period from 2024 to 2025. Starting with RFPs out to qualified firms to do the assessment work. And then once that work is done in 2024, some of the restoration work would get underway with these funds. So Judith is here too she's been on the Committee for the Arts for a long time, and she has much more background in this than I do, but it's a wonderfully energized group that we have meeting monthly now on this and a number of other priorities for the city. And we're really happy to be working with the newly hired arts and culture coordinator, Kate Rushford, as well, who's been attending the meetings, and she's our liaison to the city. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or Judith can answer questions as well.
Thank you, Karen.
Mhm.
Counselor, thank you. Any questions for Karen or Judith?
And watch the
Can I ask a
presentation,
question?
it's pretty thorough.
Yes,
Am I allowed to ask a question or comment?
if you'd like to, please.
Yeah, I was wondering on that professional assessment, it's just an assessment and I counted it and I think there's only 10 items, 10 scope and $20,000, that's $2,000 per for an assessment. Just personally, I think it's kind of high. I mean, if I was in a car wreck, it wouldn't cost me $2,000 to get an assessment. I just think it's high. My other concern is, I don't know if you're aware of it, there's a lot of residents, and I've seen a lot of bashing on Facebook next door. Don't Boston, my Cape Ann. People are not happy with changing the patina. Residents are outraged.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna get into that
Okay.
at this time, though. I appreciate.
Well, because
your
they're
concern.
saying that, I'm just wondering if that's
You should
included.
please feel free to reach out to the committee so that you can weigh in and let them know your specific concerns so they can incorporate that in their programming and thoughts.
Okay, well, I was wondering if that was included in here, that restoration.
At this point, it's just an assessment as you put it out.
No, because there's stuff here for the wheel, the statue, the
Yeah.
wheel,
Could you just state your name so that it's
Jane
on?
Fox Dawson.
Jane, thank you, Jane. Yeah. Good. Any councilor
Yeah,
questions?
thank you, Jane. We're happy to listen to hear any public comment on any of the work that we are doing or overseeing. You know, obviously, the work isn't something that the committee itself is doing. It's always done by professional groups, and we weigh in and oversee the work. But so yeah, we're happy to have you come to any of the meetings that we have on a monthly basis.
Where are
Councilor
the
O'Neill.
meetings?
I'm sorry, where are your meetings or when?
At the Harbor Master's office.
Right here.
Yep.
Councilor O'Neill.
Can I ask the name of the two companies that you usually use or have used in the past?
Sure. One is Daedalus, Daedulus, I believe is the spelling of that. And the other one is DAED. Daedalus, DAED. It's in the proposal. Let me just, DAEDALUS, Daedalus Art Restoration. And the other one,
Oh, sorry, DAEDLIST?
nope, DAEDALUS.
Okay.
Okay, and the other one is Skylight Studios. It's a lot easier.
All right, thank you very much. And did one of those companies do Tablet Rock?
No,
Can you
Tablet
tell
Rock.
me- Yep.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. Tablet Rock was done by a different art conservator.
Can you tell me who that was? Do you know, or off the top of your head?
Yes, Judith, was that was Bruce Lane?
I'm
I believe
sorry?
it was Bruce Lane. That was the Committee for the Arts oversaw that, but it was done by Bruce Lane, who has done a number of the other plaque restoration projects. There is a very well-meaning citizen, Roger Armstrong, who raised some money some years ago to have Tablet Rock restored, the stone around it and the bronze itself. And that restorer was Bruce Lane, and it was made to be the same color as it was when it was originally installed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Karen. Councilor Worthy.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Karen. Thank you, Judy, as well for being here. So I know there've been a number of inventories over the years of different city artwork. And I know that was, I think you mentioned as part of this, but this is actually an assessment and also restoration of some of this artwork. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. But we're doing an inventory project. We're creating a digital a digital inventory. There have been a number of inventories done of some of the murals, some of paintings in City Hall, that kind of thing, but they're all on paper and none of them are in a searchable archive. None of them are complete or up to date. None of them have, images of the artwork or the kind of information that we'd like to see in a full-blown inventory. So that's the work we are planning to do this year and into next year. There's actually a call for a request for proposals out there now to hire somebody to help us with that work. And that would give us an online searchable database that we could update much easier than updating a lot of different paper inventories.
Sorry, and I just want to make sure this part of this money is also for restoring some of those pieces of work that are in the inventory. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And as was noted in somebody's presentation earlier, costs have gone up of labor and materials and all of that. So we, I believe, built that into the proposal, and knowing that this is going to go out for a couple of years as well.
Thank you.
Any other councilor questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and read the motion. Yes.
Someone has their.
It's not a public hearing. Thank you. Budget and Finance would move to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $125,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the City of Gloucester Committee for the Arts for the purpose of restoration and preservation of city-owned artworks in order to restore an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Capital Projects Fund 5813, and I so move.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other councilor questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. And then our sixth project tonight, the last CPA project on this round, there'll be 6 more in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Judith.
Project number 6 is the Hammond Castle Oceanside Exterior Restoration Project in the amount of $87,000. And our applicant is the Hammond Castle Museum. Welcome.
Thank you. I think I might stand over here. So.
Please do.
All right, so I don't have my badge. Thank you so much. I want to thank the council and Finance Project Committee for letting us preserve and present tonight regarding our ask to the CPC committee for a grant that will help us fund and assist the stabilization and repair the Oceanside Towers and the roof of the castle. These repairs are essential to prevent further damage due to water ingress and damage caused to the interior of the building, such as the organ and the organ chambers. This restoration will strengthen the structure of the building and ensure the safety of visitors and to help preserve the interior of the housing of our collections, our facades, and the organ itself. Questions that I can take from anyone?
Councilors, questions? Councilor Wortley.
So thank you. We met at Lobster Land last year. Thank you for the work you do promoting Hammond Castle and for this year. So someone asked me, I don't know, sometime last year, early this year, there's a number of events held there. My son played in the band, the high school O'Malley band that played there. And it's from the 400th anniversary events, and they asked about handicap accessibility of the castle. Could you talk about what parts are or anything like that? I know it's not exactly the same, but we're gonna put public funds to that. That's important.
We've been allowed not to have to abide by the rules, and because of the grandfathering, the castle, and the age of the building itself, that it's a historical building, and that we could not add something like an elevator to it. So what we do instead of that is we have an open area in our lobby that we have a film that presents itself to anyone who's handicapped that can come into our lobby and watch this presentation. It's a film about Hammond himself and about the building, and it gives them a really nice touch of what the building is all about, what the inventor is all about as well. And John Hayes Hammond Jr. was a very successful and prosperous man who loved his community and loved Gloucester, and we love sharing the story with everyone.
Thank you.
You're giving them fresh life.
You certainly have.
And my
I
second
continue to.
question is I just got an invitation to a presentation on his life in 2 weeks. Is that something that you're?
Do you know who's sponsoring that event?
I thought it was the council. I just saw something that came past John Hayes Hammond, life of him, Sunday the 19th, I think it was.
Unfortunately, it's not anything to do with our organization.
Okay.
It could be a presentation though that one of my guides has been asked to go out and do in the public, and we do service the public that way.
I should have checked. I was just trying to give you a little moment for publicity.
But they can all come to the Jambalaya Celebration and Illumination on Saturday, the 18th of November, which is free to the public, and we are opening house that evening, so people come in and have a sneak peek of Deck the Halls of Hammond Castle. So I can plug that.
That's the 18th of November. What time?
It starts, I believe, at 5:30.
Hope to see you. Thank you.
Councillor Gilman.
Linda, we had a wonderful talk
Yes.
during the 400th celebration there on the quarry. So thank you. I'm gonna just ask for you just to update us on all the free things that you do for the community.
Sure.
The taxpayer would feel happy about and supporting you with some of our CPA funding.
Okay, so I'd love to do that because back in 2018, we weren't offering anything to the community. And we've been able to open that door because, excuse me, we've been able to develop our programming in a way that we know that will be effective in the community as well. We have Tuesdays, every Tuesday, the museum is open, is gratis day for Gloucester citizens to come in. We have 2 children's free days to come in, and they are always based upon vacation schedules for the public school system, so that children can come in and enjoy the museum for free as well. We also offer Santa Claus programming for the children. We work with Pathways and the YMCA, and an ability to offer the opportunity for children in need to come in, have an opportunity to meet Santa, have their pictures taken with them, and receive a beautiful wrapped gift that they will take home with them. As long as this one's cookies and chocolate milk and things like that. So
Do you do prom pictures there too?
we do.
Yeah.
We have been offering the high school the opportunity to come in and do their prom pictures as well. So
Spectacular.
we love reaching out as much as we can and to see what the new projects would be. We're also starting to work with the school systems and their curriculums so that we can offer and develop programming that will benefit the students to come as a group, and also to our archive system. We're working very hard on that, digitizing it so that it can be offered to the public as well. And we are almost ready to release all of our files on Hammond so that research can be free to the public for students as well as anyone of interest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other councillor questions? Councillor Gross?
No, your presentation was good that you did for the CPC, and it's great, you know, you're more life being breathed into an old historic, but I can imagine, you know, for students, particularly middle school, you know, buttresses and, you know, castle, mason, you know, just different architectural things for the classes. I can see that
It's
being a
really
great tool.
Quite amazing.
Yeah.
And most of the students, we have schools from all over, actually, the state that come to see us, and we love to be able to share that with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other councillor questions, I'm going to go ahead and read our motion for this. Budget and Finance moves to recommend that the City Council appropriate up to $87,000 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide funding to the Hammond Castle Museum for the purpose of supporting the Hammond Castle Oceanside exterior restoration in order to preserve an historic resource. The appropriation will be allocated to the historic preservation category and funded from the unrestricted reserves in Fund 4500. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Projects Fund 4763, and I so move.
Second?
Motion is made and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to adjourn the committee as a whole. We still have a little bit of budget and finance committee meeting, but we want to take.
So I'd like to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Second? Do we need to vote on
I
it?
think so, yeah.
Second?
Roll call vote, Council Gross,
Yes.
Yes.
Council Member, Council Worthy.
Yes.
Council O'Neill.
Yes.
Council Gilman, yes. Council Grow.
Yep.
Yes, it's have it. 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So we're going to just stretch our legs, well, and then we'll reconvene for the next item on our agenda, which is a memorandum from the principal assessor and her staff regarding tax classification. Yes. I missed that.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Yeah. Jill has to be taken out of order.
It's like, sometimes so I do my best. The best thing is it's like our parents got a meeting, you take care of it, I miss them, so it's kind of like, we do it every year. Grace, you laugh. I was like, right on the edge, let it break. We should talk about it.
I watch this, I should stand up.
Because it's like, you watch this, you should stand up.
I've been sedentary for too long.
I can't control. And then I just start laughing, I look away.
It's different.
My brother and I used to have that problem with church. I would start laughing.
I always, I can make my way.
Yeah, you don't know what the other person's laughing at, just that part of it's funny.
Right,
When you start ready to know, so just stop.
You're not on camera.
You good at washing dishes?
So next year.
I'm taking it off. There's an open- Yes, that's right. I'll give my,
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. The note I got was
All right, I will, catching up on emails that we're watching.
I have it.
You have a flyer for
Yes. You're not gonna be here. Oh, that's right. Would you be here on the sixth?
Oh, yeah.
And at 3:30 in the morning when the dog.
I might go.
Wow, I fell into the.
I might be,
And they didn't know what to do, because they're elderly, so they called the fire. So very nice of their about. Hi.
7:30, I was running.
Fire.
Summertime.
I mean, I was like.
When she was-
What does one say over the dog?
High five and it's just, just remember, it's always.
No.
No, unless you use it. Is that you're right? But it's kind of like.
Oh, yes.
Bill Belichick. I'll bring the news for you. He said, you know, missed a tackle in the second quarter, and here, third quarter, we missed a.
Plenty right now.
I know, but it's sort of like, I don't even cannot celebrate. So thank you for saying that.
You want us to close the door?
No, I was outside.
Thank you so much.
Other people see it all.
Yeah.
So it looks like, are you muted? It looks like, it says you're connected.
Let's go.
Let's go. And I knew that she.
Back.
You didn't bring a pen?
No, what's going on?
Oh, you know. Wait, I do have a pen. It was in the wrong bottle.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I kicked him with a fever, so I was.
You're leaving?
No, I'm saying that he's not that low of a kid, he should be fine. But they get real little, real fast when they're sick.
Tell me to get in the bathtub and run the cold water.
Yeah. Lots of fluids.
It's really, I mean, these guys are the experts.
So the next item on our budget and finance agenda this evening is a memorandum from our principal assessor regarding tax classification. And I'd like to welcome Nancy Pappas and Gary Johnstone and Tim Good.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Fiscal 24 assessed values and new growth were approved by the Department of Revenue on October 23rd, which allows us to move forward with tax classification. There are 4 options to consider, none of which change the total tax levy. And as there are no parcels classified as open space, and the mayor has not chosen to adopt either the residential exemption or the small commercial exemption, the focus is on determining whether or not to shift a portion of the tax levy from one class of property to another. To do so, a residential factor must be adopted, and this factor determines the share of the levy that each class of property will bear. Page 4 of the packet shows the total value and percentage of each class. The residential class makes up 91.74%, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property accounts 8.26. The taxable value of the city increased close to 13% from fiscal 23. And based on the sales analysis, the residential class as a whole increased a little over 12.5%. The single family class was a little over 14%, condominiums approximately 13%, and the 2 and 3 families and apartments were roughly 5.5% as a whole for the class. The commercial class as a whole increased a little over 5%, and market adjustments to the industrial class was close to 6%. So overall, there's more significant increases in market adjustments on the residential side based on the sales analysis. Page 5 shows the parcel counts and assessed values of each class from 2011 to the present. And page 6 is a listing of the historic shift factors that have been adopted over the years. And the underlying residential factor associated with the shift is what is voted on. Page 7 shows the calculation of the maximum allowable levy. It starts with the fiscal 23 levy limit, which is reduced by amended growth. Added to that is the Prop 2.5 increase and growth for fiscal 24. And that results in the 24 levy limit. And added to that are the debt exclusions, which results in the maximum allowable levy. That number divided by the total value of all parcels results in a tax rate at a factor of 1 of 9.76. A factor of 1 would result in the same rate for all classes of property, and any factor other than 1 would shift a portion of the levy to another class. Page 8 shows approximate tax rates that result from the various shifts to the commercial, industrial, and personal property class. The maximum shift allowed by the state is 1.5. Page 9 shows a comparison of levies by class at various shift factors. The tax rates are approximate and rounded so as not to exceed the maximum allowable levy. And the far right-hand column shows the difference in the levy that each class of property would bring in after the shift.
I lost track, we were the last presented part, what page is that?
Page 9.
Page 9.
Page
Do you
number,
need me to
I'm sorry.
repeat any of that?
Sure, it's on the spreadsheet.
Sorry, it's- Thank you.
Page 10 shows the change in tax dollars for properties valued at different levels at various shifts. It shows the savings to the residential parcels and the increase in tax dollars for commercial, industrial, or personal property taxpayers. For fiscal '24, the average single-family home is valued at $918,140. And the median single-family home is $660,500.
What was the
So
number
if it-
before, the 900,000?
yeah.
Is the
that's
average?
Average single-family home,
What was the number, 900 and what?
918,140. There's been considerable increases on the upper end, so that's gonna include everything, all the extremes. The way the market has been, we're seeing things, even in our waterfront, selling for multi-million dollars, you know, even without a view, potentially if they're in a highly desirable location, so that does shift the average up. Looking at the impact it has based on shifting, I'll use the $750,000 column, which is somewhere in between those two. At the 1.03 shift, that would save the residential taxpayer $22.50, while the commercial, industrial, or personal property taxpayer would pay an additional $217.50. And at the bottom of the page, the maximum shift allowed of 1.5 is illustrated. And in that same $750,000 column, it would be a savings to the residential taxpayer of $330, while the commercial, industrial, and personal property taxpayer would pay an additional $3,660. The remainder of the packet explains the open space discount and the residential exemption and small commercial exemption, which are not viable options this year. So we will do our best to answer any questions if you have them.
Councilors, thank you very much, Nancy. It never gets old. Some of those numbers are sort of Trumpian. We're talking about a $10 billion asset value in the community.
10.5.
Thank you. Councilor Gross.
No. No, I got the tutorial last year, so it's kind of held over. The numbers are what they are. Kind of hurts us in one aspect because we don't get the aid. Hurts us a lot. in
Which
that
is
aspect.
that?
Like chapter 70 money for the schools, we get the short end.
Factors in the calculations.
Yeah,
How does it factor into tax classification?
it doesn't. I'm just talking
Oh,
state
The
aid,
valuations.
evaluations.
Got it. My bad.
Councilor Worthley.
So I understand this issue really well. I also appreciate that not everybody on the Zoom call and these will understand. I think you did a great explanation. Nancy. Your staff worked really hard. Thank you. The average single family home is $918,000. Use the $750,000 example. Do we know what the median house value, most common house value is for single family homes? We can have context. It might be around 750, but
In terms of the savings, you mean if you were 60?
What's the valuation?
yeah, what would be the median? If you don't have the information, that's okay.
The median single family
Yeah.
is 660,500.
Okay. So I'm not gonna ask you to do math in your head, I can't. But on the, I think it's page, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing down. The page where you had a couple different columns of what the savings would be at different values.
Page 10.
Okay. So use 750 for the example you spoke about, but median 660, you said?
Yeah, so it's somewhere in between the 5 and 750, where the average was so high, I just chose that column to
Yep.
to offer.
For every hundredth of a point, 1.01, 1.02, figure out what we're actually saving residents if that were the case. I think I'm using
Somewhere
5
between 15 and 20
15 and 22, you're in between there.
per month, per
That's
quarter,
per
annual.
year,
per year.
per
On-
$100,000 evaluation.
So a shift of 0.01 and anything for another 10% there would save between $15 and $20 for the median.
The 1.03 shift would do that,
Oh, so
between 15 and 22.
I see. So
Something
1.01
less
would
than
be
that.
like another $5, $5 to $10, 0.01.
You're going
0.12.
lower to
Yeah, if it went up.
1.01, or you're going up.
Either way.
If you're going up, we have the illustration of the 1.06 and the 110. So you
I see.
follow down that column, the $15 savings, say on the 500 becomes 45 if you shift to the 1.10.
I see. Just feels like not a place that we can actually impact much, right, for the median taxpayer. Right, if these were greater savings, we could be more impactful. And then, do you know, you mentioned the percent growth on the single family home and commercial property, or I'm sorry, residential rate, residential property and commercial property. Do you know what the percentages on new growth compared to last year?
Are you talking about new growth or actual market adjustments? Because on page 4, I'm basically kind of describing what happened in our sales analysis and what we had for market adjustments per class. New growth, I have information on that as well. If you're really more concerned with what do we see in terms of tax dollar growth for residential versus commercial.
Well, thanks for helping me clarify the question. I was thinking that, so new growth is not subject to Proposition 2.5. That can be new taxes that we collect that don't require an adjustment to the rest of the tax levy.
New growth is part of the Proposition 2.5 formula in essence, because we are allowed to bring in 2.5% more than we brought in for the levy from the previous year, plus new growth.
Right.
But those properties are also there and they are carrying that load of taxes basically, because new growth is often new construction, things of that nature.
So do you know how much new growth we have for this coming fiscal year?
Yes. So the total in tax dollars, so there's value, but then it equates to tax dollars, was 817,345.
That's the tax dollar.
That's tax dollars for the residential. The total for all classes was 1,119,350.
So
That's on page 7.
So new growth is largely residential growth in value. New growth is
Residential does make up a bigger portion of
80%
the
of
growth.
those. Okay. You know, some people try to attribute tax classification to having an impact on total valuations, but has no correlation. Right? If we were to have a higher tax factor, lower tax factor, it doesn't necessarily mean that home values have gone up or down. I mean, it's really values of home which drive that percentage number of, right now we're at 8% or so commercial property, but that's largely because of the sales of residential property. So
It's a combination of sales and growth. So like there's on the residential sector, values are increasing at a higher percentage. It's a more volatile purchase. That's usually the case. Commercial, industrial, always a little bit more stable. It's an investment decision. If market was to go the other way, when it's decreasing values, you will see that the residential will probably drop at a faster pace as well. But the market increases, and then the growth in terms of development, that's what's changing the percentage of the class as a whole, and why you see in an increasing market that residential percentage of the whole pie is going up, and you're going down a little bit on the commercial end.
one more question?
Okay.
I know this is a city council decision. Do we have a recommendation from the mayor's office on what we should do?
The mayor's recommending staying at the 1.03. Yeah, and he, and I'm sure people heard him speak about it recently in the business.
Thank you.
On page 7. Just because it's only on my mind because we just went through 6 of them. The CPC money, the 1%, did we just not account for that here because it's a dedicated
1%, basically like on a real estate tax bill, whatever your assessed value is, it's gonna be multiplied by the.
Right, but that's over and above the 2.5,
It's separate, whole separate fund.
right. So it's like here you have the CSO debt exclusion, the water debt
Yes.
exclusion. But just the CPC money is not here and that's gotta be, like, it's $1 million a year or something.
So that does appear as a separate line on the tax bill.
Right,
It's not part of the levy. It's not part of the levy.
got it. Okay. That answers that question.
Calculated charge, surcharge.
Yeah, no.
And so our tax factor wouldn't impact that
No.
then?
Well, yeah, it would,
Yeah, would.
Will it impact the rate?
yeah.
When all is said and
So
done,
much
the
per
tax
thousand,
rate.
it's 1%.
But you're
of
still
so
gonna
much per
get
thousand.
1%.
Yeah,
Yeah, you still get 1%, but if you change your tax rate for the residential, you're gonna bring in less on that portion of the CPA. I see. Monies, you'll bring a little bit higher rate on the commercial end, but if you're starting at a lower number, you still probably pay a little less overall. I studied trigonometry in high school, I didn't take calculus, so there's a point where it's like, it's good information to have, but I get lost, so, thank you.
yeah, if you hadn't followed them, I wouldn't have even got it. Popped into my head.
I was going to just say, for the purposes of discussion, I would propose a motion that we can then discuss, but I would move that the Budget and Finance Committee recommend the City Council adopt a residential tax factor of 0.99730, which equates to a CPI shift of 1.03 for fiscal year 24. And I open the floor for discussion.
It's not a second, you said the tax factor of 99, or the tax rate?
Residential tax classification factor.
Point, I didn't get that number, 0.99.
Yeah, that's just what-
97300.
For CPI shift of 1.03.
Okay, sorry. So 1.03, I second that.
Discussion. Councilor Gross.
So it's 0.9977.
That's what it is now.
Right, that's what it is now, 0.9973, yeah. And then and then for the commercial, industrial and personal property, it's 1.3, got it. Yep, no, that sounds good.
Could I just ask one more question? Again, sometimes I know the answer and I'll ask it to kind of verify it. Sometimes I don't know the answer and you don't know which one those are. So in this one, I don't know. If we adopt a tax factor of 1.03, can we also say that 3% of the residential tax levy is being shifted to commercial property owners in addition to their 100%?
No, basically what happens at the 1.03 shift is that the commercial, industrial, and personal property class will bring in 3% more than it would have at a factor of 1.
We'll
So,
be charging them more, 3% more and not charging.
so when that
residents.
savings, it's not as big a number because it's a smaller class. When that savings is then spread over a very large piece of the pie, which is the residential, that's why you don't see a lot of savings with the 90-10 split.
I see.
They're not bringing in 3% of the residentials. They're bringing in 3% more than they would have as a class when you shift away from the 1, and it's a 1.03.
And then that 3% more of the 8% of the taxpayers is a savings, but divided by the other 92%. That's why it's not a big
That's
dollar
why
number.
it's very difficult to achieve a measurable savings for the residential when you have this kind of makeup in a community.
Thank you for finally helping that click in my head.
You can see that on page 9.
Yep.
Under the factor of 103. On the last column over, it shows that the residential is saving 286,000.
Total.
Yeah, 286,665.26.
Divided by 20,000.
Exactly, over the whole
12,000 properties.
value of the group, and the reasonably close number, because you can't get exact because of the way numbers work, but it gets effectively 249,536.95 gets shifted to the CIP class.
Okay.
Just 2,413.
I have another question that between you and you can help here. We're looking at a infrastructure investment for water replacing some of the water lines in the city, and to accomplish that in an equitable means as possible for the city and taxpayers, it's been proposed rather than putting it onto the water bill, that to allocate it to the tax base. So that's a $50 million debt service expense that's being rolled into the city's expense structure for the next years. So how does, from your point of view, how does that factor in with the tax burden that the community bears?
Well, that would just be, you know, an increase in the tax levy as a whole over and above what 2.5 lets you do with 2.5% increase in new growth. So
Page 7.
if you go to page 7, you would see that as an additional line under the bold FY 2024 levy limit.
Right.
So that would be in addition, you know, whatever the debt service is each year for that particular project would then be added to the basically the 2.5 formula for the levy limit increase each year. And you know, given that type of project, it's not going to hit all at once. It's going to come, you know, be bits and pieces of the project will be done over multiple years, that will be issued over multiple years, more than that. So it will come in gradually.
It's just appropriate to make note of that in the scheme of things, along with, Coles Hill is not on this list anymore.
Coles Hill is off.
It's fallen off, but we do have the CSO debt exclusion, the water debt exclusion, the East Gloucester, East Veterans Elementary School debt exclusion. They're already on our books.
They're already there, and not to be depressing, but the East Vets debt exclusion will increase as, you know, as we get to the end of the project, go through the MSBA audit, and then all the debt is issued, which it is not as yet.
And that'll be for another 20 years.
Yes, and you know, by the time all the debt is issued in that 20-year term, so we're probably talking 25 years from now.
I guess since we kind of went all off topic, I do want to know this. So the East Gloucester Veterans Elementary School, right? That was properties to have override, but the water debt exclusion, CSO debt exclusions, were those properties to have override? Voters picked.
That was Mayor Kirk's decision back in the day.
That doesn't need an override to make that shift.
So you can do a debt shift by vote of the council. So the requirement is that you can do a debt shift for utility debt. However, you can't charge it twice. So you can either shift it to the tax levy, or you can keep it as part of the utility rate calculation, but you can't do it both ways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Gross? Yeah. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. And any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed, for a rate of CPI tax shift of 1.03 as maintaining the current course. What's already in place.
If we could also note, I think we're all very impressed with the assessor's office, treasurer's office, auditors, like to come here and not like do you have the presentation, you have it memorized what page each part of it is on. I'm impressed.
It's been a few years.
I know, but thank you. That's very helpful.
And I just, on a historical note, in the past, this committee has urged a flat 1.0 rate, and I think that the sense has been that this is not a year to try and bring it down lower again, but just to stay the course. Stay where we are. There's a question of what the material difference is for a taxpayer, whether commercial, industrial, or residential, and what kind of a message it sends to the business community. We encourage people to locate their businesses here, but again, this is, I think, the sense of the committee, obviously by our vote, is to stay the course at the current rate. But again, thank you all for your presentation and the clarity that I think we might learn something over the course of time.
Every time.
No, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
No,
Oh, sorry, there's more on our agenda?
we have Kenny's
Oh, sorry.
list, but if anybody would like to leave, the assessor's office can certainly go home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Still can't stay here. Right?
Well, this is kind of an. Information purposes only, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not gonna go through that. 19 pages, are we? Or whatever it is.
You know, I printed it all out.
Here's the one line. Yes,
I
that's
printed
what
it
did. Yeah, I know he did. He was comparing, so.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks.
Was that intermarriage?
Well, it's comes. Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, we're here.
Thank you.
Your question.
Your son was saying?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Gary.
Is it overground?
No, it's at the, it's an accounting. Yeah.
I've been a little busy this week, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, what are you doing?
So,
You haven't gotten all your yard signs in yet.
I think that might be, we might just look at that as, information purposes. only.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
So. wanna-
So I just want to speak to that.
Can you just like, give them a chance to speak? Just go through what we have? So thank you for the detailed reports on those. I don't know if I,
Let me see if I can find it.
Jeff was just saying he was busy this week. He didn't study it.
Kenny,
He
I
didn't have a
asked for
chance to do
this,
his homework.
and I appreciate you said it, and I apologize that I'm not up to speed on it.
He had an election in case you didn't notice.
Yes,
And my kids.
congratulations.
Thanks, but even if I had one.
Congratulations to all three.
Yeah, thanks. It's been, I should have looked at this. I
Been
apologize.
busy week.
I opened it, and now I don't know what it
Is
is.
there anything that you feel like you'd like to highlight in these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I just want to say, it's, it's a report we talked about in the past. It's 19 pages. Obviously, it's not a 1 page, it's a 19 page. If this is something the committee would like to see on a quarterly, and this is through period 3, which is through September. And as you can see, you can't think of it as, oh, we spent only 30% of all of the appropriations or the budget. So if you look at the last page of the, budget, we've spent 64%. But again, there's $26 million of encumbrances. So you can't think of it as a corporation, you can't think of it as, okay, yeah, we should be at 30%. It doesn't work that way in a municipality.
So
We
we know
spent
what we're going
13, we spent $13 million on July 1st.
Right.
To fund
pension, yeah.
to fund the pension liability.
And
So,
that's a
so that
annual
is,
payment.
that is July 1st, the first day of the year that goes out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so we can have a savings
It
of
saves us money by.
$100,000.
Right.
I mean, I know my predecessor, this used to be done monthly. And I remember when I first joined the retirement, once I became a board member, I talked to the board and, we talked about, saving money and, because I think at that time, I think they made the payment in September. Then I said, let's see if we can make the payment in July. And we were able to do that with John at, cooperatively and making that happen on July 1st. So there's a savings of 100,000. I know John was very supportive of that early on, and his predecessor wasn't. So that's why, that was a no-brainer. To save $100,000 just to make that payment 2 months earlier.
And it's been a good policy that you maintain.
Well, on the pain in the neck to make it on July 1st.
Yeah.
Because you gotta line a lot of things up.
Yeah.
You got a plan.
You gotta move quickly.
It's $100,000 savings worth of pain, so
It's okay,
Yeah.
it's worth a day.
Is there anything, you said that this doesn't correlate to like business performer or see like where we stand year to date relative to the calendar and expenses? Are there any categories of things where this is valuable information to know? Like, will there be a point where we say, okay, 50%, when we get to January 1st, this is the kind of thing we should be about 50% of the way through? Or is there no correlation?
Yeah, you'll never see that. I mean, I can see down the road, maybe in March, like for example, if you want to look at snow and ice, at that point, because right now we're flush. With snow and ice, all we have right now is just encumbrances. So DPW, they're starting to encumber salt. So that's the only thing that, that we have. There's no overtime, there's no expenses yet. Because this is so early on in the fiscal year. So I think as we progress throughout the fiscal year, I think there's going to be certain departments, certain categories that I think will be helpful. So think of it, this report, it's the way that the city council votes the budget in June. So you vote by personal service, which is salaries, ordinary maintenance, which is non-salaries. And then some departments have that capital outlay category that, that is voted. So I think, like I said, once we progress throughout the fiscal year, I think some categories will help. And also too, you will see there are some personal services accounts that are in a deficit. It's because of the contract. So that's not something that you'll see annually, having a deficit so early in the year, just because there was a contract,
Right.
that was done, early in the fiscal year. That was paid out and encumbered, so that's why we have a deficit.
I see.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't know, looking at this, whether it's an encumbrance or expense already.
No, you do, so if you go, yeah.
Oh, there it is, sorry, it's there. Again,
Even if you want to look at city council, so the first column, the original appropriation, so personal services, 114,750. And then the next column is transfers and adjustments in and outs into that account or into those series of accounts, that category. And then how much was spent, how much has been encumbered, and then the remaining available budget. So like in your ordinary maintenance, you have 36,900. There's been no expenditures, nothing encumbered today or as of September 30th.
If we don't encumber it, we'll end up losing it.
It's not, I mean, it's not losing it. I mean, it's just, it falls.
It's available.
It's available.
You have
It could
to
be
spend it.
We don't get
transferred.
to spend it again.
It could be transferred to snow and ice or to another need
Right.
in the city.
And probably out of that account will come if people go to the Mass Municipal Association.
Correct.
So that'll come out of there.
So there's so much that happens.
there'll be some
within-
money coming
within
out.
the budget that's seasonal, and it all depends on what you're talking about.
Can we get a room on this, Kenny?
What's that?
Can we get a room up in Boston on this?
As long as city council president approves it, yeah.
How is that money encumbered for the city council? How,
Because, so, I'm sorry.
so the city council ordinary account, how do those decisions get made? You said council.
City council president, so what typically happens, the process that, that was developed years ago, city council president is the lead, represents the department and makes the decisions whether we open up a PO or, putting together the budget.
So it should be done with the total consensus of the council.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wonder if that's.
I mean, you could have council presidents that wouldn't do that, but I can't envision it now.
No.
Yeah, I remember starting that process years ago with Jackie Hardy,
Mhm.
Councilor Hardy at the time. So I started that with her. She's the one I know, there was no supplies, there was no ordinary budget. So she advocated for it.
This is
So-
separate from the city clerk's.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
This is
This
for
is
us, okay.
Yep.
We never really
So-
think about this or talk about it.
And any expense that comes through, I always, like, for example,
The audits that we thought we needed.
Yeah, but this will be.
Val will always send me an email, yes, I approve that purchase, yes, I approve. So I typically open the purchase order, and, process the invoice, but I always ask for approval.
Yeah, like, a month ago, we started getting the request, are you gonna come to the conference? And it's like, well, wait, and see if we get reelected. So if you are planning on going, it's time to tell Joanne Race, because they make the arrangements, right?
Yeah, yeah, they do the registration, I open the PO.
Okay,
Checks and balances.
out of fairness to, I haven't looked at this, so I can't, it wouldn't be fair to ask questions that I can figure out on my own at this point, so.
And call me.
Wait, call you? Cause you have a look
I
at it.
can walk, no, I mean, we can look at it, on our own desks and go through it, yeah.
Nothing caught my eye that,
Yeah.
and it didn't provide
It
any.
is right now, it's kind of like, and encumbrances are hard, they can be hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah,
And encumbrance are also,
Took me a long
it's just
time.
it's a plan.
It's a
And the
place.
plan can change.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It just tells you aimed dollars at a particular
They're reserved.
issue.
Yeah.
But you haven't. spent it
Loosely.
yet.
Yeah,
this will be
and the
more
priority
helpful.
might change.
Yeah, so we can, just call me, we can go
Thank
through
you,
this.
I'd like to.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at like snow and ice here. I mean, we, you know, as you know, 766,000, there's encumbrances of 40,000 for salt. You know, there's 726,000 available, so that looks good right now.
Good.
Looks great right now, but let's
Transfer
talk again in March,
Yeah.
you know.
No, April, May.
Yeah.
Play the commodities market for sand and salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there are insurance companies that will insure, oh, pretty much anything, but you could say there's rain insurance, there's snow insurance.
There is.
Are there municipalities that, in your experience, take advantage of those? Is it worth the risk?
I did it 1 year.
That wasn't the year we've done it.
It worked.
And the cost was.
2015?
96?
No,
in a.
96
No,
or
municipality. I
95,
forget- I
whatever
forget
it was.
what
The 2 years, we
But
had
it was,
like 93 and 95, we had
I
horrific
think
snowstorms.
it was in the late 90s that we did it, and it did work, but we only did it that 1 year.
I only raised that, when I started working in the Salem Chamber of Commerce, they had a golf tournament, they bought rain insurance, and it rained. I just walked into this and we got $40,000 for not having our event.
Right.
Because there was an inch of rain, and that was just like,
Yeah,
So I wonder if-
wedding people do that. you know.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's
Travel
any
insurance.
value in saying, okay, if we don't have this much, we have this much more snow than average. Would some insurance company give us $1 million to, pay for those expenses?
Yeah, it's one of those things, so generally, we under budget snow and ice each year, so. So we just kind of.
Well, we know, I mean, the reason is because you get locked in.
Yeah.
You can't go down.
Yep.
No.
I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
thank you for putting that, I will.
Thanks, Chris.
Tony, I'll
Yeah.
call you.
So
Yeah,
is this a
definitely.
report that you would like to see quarterly? So